Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
We need to talk about something that's flying completely under the radar right now with the New York Mets. While everyone's obsessing over the big names in free agency and getting frustrated with what David Stearns is or isn't doing, there's a whole other story developing that could shape this franchise for the next decade. And honestly, most fans have no idea what's actually happening behind the scenes. So let's cut through all the noise and get real about where this team stands. The offseason so far has been frustrating for a lot of Mets fans. I get it. You see these names floating around, you see other teams making splashes, and the Mets seem to be sitting on their hands. Jorge Polanco comes in, which is solid. Marcus Semien arrives, which addresses a need. But where's the blockbuster? Where's the move that makes you jump out of your seat? Before we spiral into panic mode, though, let's talk about what's actually going on here, because David Stearns isn't just sitting around doing nothing. There's a method to what he's building, and whether you agree with it or not, you need to understand where this is headed. The Kyle Tucker situation is fascinating to me. Everyone wants the Mets to throw ridiculous money at him, sign him to some massive deal, and call it a day. But here's the thing that nobody wants to acknowledge. Tucker's numbers last season were basically matched by Jorge Polanco in several key categories. Now, I'm not saying Tucker isn't good. He's an excellent player. But are we talking about a Juan Soto level talent here? Are we talking about someone worth 9 figures in 7 years? That's the real question. The same conversation applies to Cody Bellinger. Guy's had some incredible years, but he's also had some really bad ones. The inconsistency is real. With Bellinger, you at least get the defensive versatility. He can play first base, which matters because, let's be honest, Jorge Polanco cannot be your only option at first. Mark Vientos at first base is painful to watch. The guy is one of the slowest players in baseball, and his defense there is just not good. So having someone like Bellinger who can slide over to first when needed actually makes sense. But here's what I think a lot of people are missing. Stearns is building something different here. He's not just trying to slap together a roster for 1 year and hope it works. He's thinking long-term, and part of that long-term plan involves the farm system that he's completely transformed. Let me tell you something that should excite every Mets fan. 2 years ago, this farm system was ranked somewhere between 12th and 17th in baseball, depending on who you asked. Right now, top 5 at worst. Some analysts have them at number 1. That's an incredible turnaround in such a short time. And it's not just about drafting well. Stearns has overhauled the entire player development system from AAA all the way down to the Dominican Summer League. They're teaching a completely different approach at the plate, focusing on aggressive barreling and plate discipline. The pitching development has been revolutionary too. Look at what they did with guys' arsenals last season. Nolan McLean, who everyone loves, Stearns didn't draft him, but the player development staff that came in with Stearns completely changed his pitch mix and turned him into one of the most exciting pitching prospects in baseball. That's not luck. That's systematic improvement. Carson Benj is the name you need to know. This is Stearns' guy, first pick of his first draft with the Mets. You better believe he wants this to work out. Benj jumped from A-ball all the way to AAA last season. That's aggressive. That tells you they believe in him. Now, is he ready for opening day? Probably not. He needs more at-bats, more seasoning. But by mid-season, if he's mashing in Syracuse and the Mets need an outfielder because of injury or performance issues, don't be surprised if he gets the call. The beautiful thing about Benj is his versatility. He can play center field. That's huge because right now, the Mets cannot roll out Tyrone Taylor as their everyday center fielder. Taylor is a fourth outfielder, a defensive replacement, a guy you use situationally. He's not your starter on a contending team. So if the Mets add someone like Tucker or Bellinger and Benj develops the way they think he will, suddenly you've got a really interesting outfield taking shape. Let's talk about the bullpen situation because this is where things get really dicey. Edwin Diaz leaving for the Dodgers hurt. No question about it. They brought in Devin Williams, which on paper looks solid, but Williams had an elevated ERA last season that should concern people. Luke Weaver was great until he got hurt. Then he came back and something was off. He started tipping his pitches, and by the playoffs, he was getting destroyed. The Yankees clearly didn't trust either of them enough in high leverage spots, which is why they traded for David Bednar. So now the Mets are banking on both these guys bouncing back and being their best versions. That's risky. There's no certainty there. And in the ninth inning of close games in October, you need certainty. You need someone opposing hitters' fear. That brings us to Mason Miller. This guy is an absolute monster. When San Diego acquired him from Oakland, they thought they were set at closer for years, and they should be. Miller's numbers are ridiculous. Less than a 1 ERA with the Padres last season. 45 strikeouts in 22 appearances. His slider is filthy. Hitters know it's coming and still can't touch it. He sits in the top 10% of the league in both fastball velocity and spin rate. That combination of elite velocity, elite spin, and devastating breaking stuff makes him one of the most unhittable relievers in baseball. The problem? San Diego just traded significant assets to get him a few months ago. He's under team control for several more years. Robert Suarez is gone, which means Miller is their closer going forward. Why would they turn around and trade him now? It would take a massive overpay, and even then it's hard to see them doing it. But imagine if the Mets pulled it off. You'd instantly have one of the best back ends of a bullpen in baseball. Miller closing, Williams and Weaver setting up, A.J. Minter hopefully healthy. That's a group that can shut down anyone. That's a playoff caliber bullpen. Reality check, though. It's probably not happening. The Mets are going to roll with Williams as the closer and hope he rediscovers his Brewers form. They're going to hope Weaver stays healthy and doesn't tip his pitches. They're going to hope Brooks Raley finds his groove and Minter comes back strong. That's a lot of hoping. The pitching depth in the minors is fascinating. Everyone knows about Nolan McLean, Brandon Sproat, and Jonah Tong. But behind them, you've got Will Watson, Jack Wendinger, Jonathan Santucci. These guys could all contribute at some point in the next year or two. Santucci in particular looks like he could be David Peterson's replacement. Better fastball, potentially elite slider. If he develops a reliable third pitch, he's a legitimate middle-of-the-rotation guy. Ryan Clifford is another name to watch at first base. This kid can absolutely mash. 29 homers and 93 RBIs last season. The power is real. The concern is the strikeouts. He whiffs about 150 times a year. His batting average sits in the low 230s, but his on-base percentage is solid because he walks a ton. So you might be looking at an Adam Dunn type player. 35 to 40 homers, 100 RBIs, 220 batting average, but enough walks to keep the on-base respectable. That still has value. The Mark Vientos situation is interesting. I think he's gone, not because he's not talented, but because he doesn't fit what Stearns is building. Vientos is one-dimensional. When he's not hitting homers, what is he giving you? He's slow, can't play defense, doesn't walk much. His on-base isn't good. He had a great playoff run last year, and that probably increased his trade value. And if Stearns can move him for a controllable arm or a young outfielder, I think he does it. Luis Guillorme is probably gone too. Same with Ronnie Mauricio. There's just no room. Mauricio got a raw deal last season. Guy sits on the roster for a year without at-bats, gets 2 weeks in AAA, gets called up, and then never plays. When you go that long without seeing professional pitching, it's not easy to just flip a switch and be great again. He deserves better than that, whether it's with the Mets or somewhere else. Jeff McNeil's another guy who could be moved. Solid player, but with Semien and Polanco in the mix, where does he fit? He's too good to be a bench player, but there might not be everyday at-bats for him. If another team values him as a super utility guy who can play multiple positions, maybe there's a trade there. The Dylan Ross situation is intriguing. This kid throws gas, triple digits. The stuff is electric. The question is command. If he can throw strikes consistently, he's a 7th or 8th inning guy right now. If the command is shaky, he might need more time in the minors. But the Mets are going to need bullpen help at some point during the season. Injuries happen. Performance drops off. When that happens, guys like Ross, Zach Thornton, and some of the other young arms will get their chance. Here's the bottom line. David Stearns is playing a different game than what Mets fans are used to. He's not throwing around massive contracts to aging veterans hoping to catch lightning in a bottle. He's building a sustainable winner, a team that can compete year after year because they have depth, they have young talent, they have player development. This is the first time the Mets have had back-to-back winning seasons in 10 years. Let that sink in. It's been a decade since this franchise could string together consecutive winning seasons. Stearns inherited a mess and turned it into a playoff team in year one. Now he's trying to build something that lasts. Does the roster need more pieces? Absolutely. They need at least one outfielder, probably two. They need another starting pitcher. The bullpen could use reinforcements, but spring training is still 8 weeks away. That's a lot of time. Deals will get done. Players will be added. The roster you see on opening day will look different than it does right now. The key is trusting the process. If it doesn't work, Stearns will get fired and they'll try something else. But if it works, this team could be set up for sustained success in a way they haven't been in decades. The farm system is loaded. The player development is top-notch. The front office is stable for the first time in years. So, yeah, it's frustrating watching other teams make splashy moves while the Mets seem quiet, but there's a lot happening beneath the surface. And by the time we get to spring training, I think fans are going to feel a lot better about where this roster stands, whether that means landing Tucker or Bellinger, adding Framber Valdez, making a trade for a controllable arm, whatever it is, moves are coming. The question is whether those moves fit into the long-term vision Stearns has for this franchise.